Hello, I have a psychological moment that really bothers me. I work in a small company. Sometimes our boss invites guests to inspect the production in order to make deals and stops at each unit. I immediately get a panic attack at that moment. My hands tremble, and I put myself in a terrible situation. I don't like being on stage, as they say. It always happens when there are such outsiders. Then I hide somewhere just so they don't look at me and my hands how I work. I've had this problem since I was little. I remember going to dances and we were supposed to have a concert. I didn't go. One year I had to speak in front of my team and I was shaking all over. I went to a psychiatrist, I took sedatives, but they only made me feel like a rag and I stopped them. How do you work this thing out? Well, if I undergo regression, I find the root of things. First off, thank you so much for sharing that to the person who sent this in, and really to anyone listening who feels that story in their bones. I want you to hear this loud and clear. You are so not alone. What you're experiencing is incredibly common. So let's break this down together. Let's really get into what's happening here. All right, first things first, we have to talk about the biology of it all. Because this isn't just in your head, right? It's a full body experience, and it's all being run by this really powerful, ancient system that we all have.
So, what's going on? Well, it's your fight or flight system kicking into high gear. This is your body's natural alarm bell. It's the same system that would fire up if you suddenly came face to face with, I don't know, a bear in the woods. The thing is, your alarm is going off for a perceived threat, the fear of being watched, of being judged. So those trembling hands, that heart that feels like it's going to pound out of your chest, that's just your body doing its job, trying to protect you from a danger that feels completely real, even though it's not a physical one.
And here's the tricky part. This system learns from experience. You mentioned avoiding that dance concert as a kid or shaking while talking to your team. See, every single one of those moments was like a lesson for your brain. It learned to connect the dots. Being watched equals danger. So now, when those guests walk through the door at work, that old, well-worn pathway in your brain just lights up instantly. It's a learned response, and it's become automatic.
Okay, but if it's a learned response, that's actually really good news. You know why? Because what's been learned can be unlearned. The goal here isn't to just magically make the fear disappear forever. It's about rewiring your response to the fear. So, let's get into the toolkit. Let's look at some proven ways to do exactly that.
So, there are a few really solid evidence-based approaches that don't involve medication. You've got things like exposure therapy, which is basically what it sounds like, gently and gradually facing the things you're afraid of. Then there are breathing and relaxation techniques, which are all about managing those physical symptoms as they happen. And then there's a big one, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, which really gets to the heart of the thoughts that are driving this whole cycle. And this is a perfect example of how CBT works in practice. It's all about learning to be a detective for your own thoughts. You catch that automatic, catastrophic thought, the one that screams, "This is going to be a complete disaster." And you challenge it. You ask yourself, wait a minute, is it really a disaster? Or is it way more likely that these people are just focused on their own jobs and not even noticing my hands? Just by reframing that one thought, you can start to bring down that whole physical and emotional alarm. Okay, now I want to circle back to something really important that you asked. You mentioned regression and finding the root of all this. Is that the answer? Do you have to dig up the past to fix the present? This is a really helpful way to look at it. You see, something like regression therapy is focused on finding the original why. Why did this fear start in the first place? And look, that can be super insightful, no question. But then you have therapies like CBT or exposure, and they're all about the how. How do you deal with this feeling when it shows up right now? They give you practical skills to change your reaction in the moment, which, let's be honest, is where the real battle is. So here's the bottom line. Finding the root of the problem, it's like figuring out what started the fire. And that's useful information for sure. But it doesn't put the fire out. The most empowering thing you can do is learn how to use the fire extinguisher today. The real, lasting change happens when you start practicing new ways to respond in the here and now. All right, with all that said, let's get super practical. What can you actually do the next time you feel that wave of panic starting to build? Let's talk about some tools you can put in your pocket right away. This one is so simple, but don't let that fool you. It's incredibly powerful. It's called box breathing, or the 4-4-4 technique. The moment you feel things start to escalate, just bring all your attention to your breath. Breathe in for 4 seconds, gently hold it for 4, and then breathe out slowly for 4 seconds. Doing this sends a direct message to your nervous system that says, hey, we're safe. It's like a manual override for that fight or flight alarm. Building this kind of confidence is a lot like working out. You don't walk into the gym on day one and try to lift the heaviest weight, right? You start small. So please, don't expect yourself to be totally calm in front of a whole group of visitors tomorrow. Instead, maybe start a journal to figure out exactly what sets off the panic. Or, hey, could you ask a friend at work to just watch you for 30 seconds? The idea is to find these tiny, low-stakes moments to practice being seen. Every little win builds on the last one. And please, if you take away only one thing from this, let it be this. I really want you to hear this. This experience is not a matter of weakness. It is not something wrong with you. It is not a character flaw. It is simply a learned response from a nervous system that is working overtime to try and keep you safe. That's all it is. So I'll leave you with a question to think about. What's one tiny, super low-stakes scene you could create for yourself this week? Just a small opportunity to practice. The goal isn't to conquer the fear all at once. It's just a practice. Because that's where this whole journey really begins.